And have you haven't really kept up with comics? You kind of got back into it more recently?
Yeah, Brian left Dallas and moved back to Cleveland probably around like 8th grade, and then I kept reading through high school, and then once I got to college, I think not having him there, you kind of lose that one person that you just talk about everything with. And
we all have that Brian K. Vaughan. Just in your case, it was Brian K. Vaughan.
Here's what I would like to see happen in comic books, and I'm about to go do it.
That would be unbelievable.
But yeah, so around college, I stopped reading, and then. Yeah, once I moved out to LA, I went to school in North Carolina, and then once I moved out to LA, I kind of picked it back up. And now that I'm here, it's weird because I've tried to stay current. Tom and I were talking about this, I've been living in somebody's closet, literally.
It's somebody he knows.
Someone I know, but
somebody in the audience.
Well, when I got the Daily Show, they literally hired me on a Friday and then said, "Can you start Monday?" And I had
the term Daily Show.
Yeah. I had a weekend to pack up everything and then just move. And so they put me up in a hotel for a few days, and I was like, I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know where I'm going to stay. And then somebody I worked with was like, "Oh, we have an extra room in my place, and we're using it to store stuff right now." And it was literally their storage closet. And so I'm living on an air mattress in a storage closet, which I think there are people who are like, "Oh man, you're on the Daily Show, life is great," and it's it's an air mattress.
Do you ever get a temptation to pitch comic-based stories to the Daily Show? Have you pitched any comic-based stories?
I have a little bit. Occasionally there's myself and one of the producers on the show, this guy Elliot Kalin. Woo!
Elliot Kalin.
He shows up and just name drop. But the two of us will talk comics, and occasionally we'll throw in a comic reference or try to throw in one on a joke. And I try to do this. We occasionally on the show will do a toss to Stephen Colbert, and so Stephen's he's been into comics, and
you got my shield.
Yeah. I'm very sorry about that.
You and me both. He came to my office and said, "We need to borrow this for a few hours." It never came back.
Well,
it's top shield. You throw it, it's supposed to come out.
I'm sorry, because I wouldn't give it up. But we occasionally would do these tosses, and so knowing that, I had read the most recent Secret Invasion, and Steven is in there as a Skrull, and so I was pitching as the toss that just having Steven be really excited about the fact that he's in the most recent issue of Secret Invasion, and John's not, and John bringing up the fact that well, but you're a Skrull. Clearly I'm not. That's why I'm not in there, and having Steven get really mad at the fact that he's been outed as a Skrull.
That would have been hilarious.
To everyone in this room.
It's a great time to turn to our first section, which we like to call the Stack. It's great because the first thing we're going to talk about is Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
So, Tom, you're the editor on this.
Yes,
Talk about this a little bit. What goes into editing a mega event like Secret Invasion?
It's like editing it's like editing a regular comic book, but more. more characters, more writers, more artists, more coordination, more interacting with everybody, more. Just more.
Now, do you hate super crossovers like that because it's so much work? Or?
I don't hate them. To some degree I enjoy them, and to some degree I like doing them because that means somebody else isn't doing them and screwing my life up. I'm doing it to them.
How much coordination goes on? I mean, are you does everything go eventually pyramid up to you, or is there multiple points where everybody's coordinating meetings every week?
It's not quite meetings. In the back and forth of putting the books out every month. If it's a Secret Invasion tie-in that somebody's doing, I read it at the script stage and I read it at the black and white stage to make sure it more or less jives with everything else. And so I generally, on Invasion, I'm generally the one-stop storehouse for information and intel on that. And the same thing was true of Civil War and House of M before that. But and there are some general meetings. We have a couple meetings a year that are big creative summits where a number of the creators fly in and throw ideas around. We come up with stuff like this. But then when it comes to actually doing the story, it's more or less the guys that are doing the story. So everything that's in this Brian wrote and Neil drew. Although some of the ideas that got you there may have come out of a discussion between Brian and Mark Miller or JMS or Jeff Loeb or whoever might have been in the room at that particular time.
Without ruining anything, obviously, how much has...
They win.
How much has changed from the planning stages to the actual execution stages?
Relatively little. A couple of little nips and tucks here and a couple of ideas that, were floating around very early on, didn't really catch fire, didn't really go anywhere. But generally speaking, once we're underway, it more or less is what it is. There may be a lot of drafts, particularly on the really early issues, and there's a lot of tinkering, particularly with the first book, to try and make it as accessible as possible and make sure every one of the 4,000 characters are named and you have some sense of who these people are if you're coming in and picking this up randomly off the street because you saw it on the Stephen Colbert show or something. Or not. But once we're this far into it, the train is on the tracks. It doesn't change very much from what was planned.
So, for example, if there's this happens a lot. People see that somebody's guessed an ending on the internet and say, oh, well, they changed it because they guessed it on the internet. How much does that actually happen?
I think that happened once. It happened once around 1989. It was a DC crossover, Armageddon 2001. And it was very early on, and my memory of it was that there was some disgruntled ex-employee of DC who went out and blabbed at the end of Armageddon 2001 that the secret supervillain Monarch was cast, Captain Atom. And so apparently there was a flurry of things, and they tore up tracks, they changed the whole story around, and it didn't make a lick of sense. And it turned out that the secret supervillain was cast, Hawk of Hawk and Dove, which was a great improvement. So much so that 10 years later they went, cast, no, really, the secret of Monarch he really is Captain Atom. That's just dumb. It's bad storytelling, it's bad planning.
Poor Hawk.
Poor Dove.
I used to be somebody.
These days, with the internet and with the interaction that's there, if you have any kind of mystery or secret in a story, somebody somewhere is going to guess it. I could create a list as long and as wide as this room of people guessing who was a Skrull and when and where and why. And somewhere in there, there'd be people that were right. And eventually when the comic comes out that goes, hey, that guy was a Skrull, somebody gets to go, hey, I was right. And a lot of the people go, oh, I knew that, I read it on the internet. Well, yeah, you did, and the 4 million other people that were guessing their own thing. You never go and change that stuff in mid-stride. Not if you're telling the story genuinely and are confident in your abilities and what you're doing.
And how do you feel, again, generally speaking, this wraps up in your mind? Happy with the ending?
They win. It's good. No, it comes together pretty well.
Yeah.
We're working now on 7, and 8's long been written, but Leneal's starting to draw 7 now, so I won't know for another month or so.
Yeah.
But hopefully, it'll be good.